All right. Is it time? Is it time, everybody? I know it is late in the day for a lot of you. It's barely lunchtime for me because I'm in California. So everybody, let's do a little stretch. Am I the only one on camera right now? Anybody else want to come off camera and do a little stretch, a little helicopter with your hands, right? All right. Hey, Fritz, thanks for coming on camera. I like to be able to see my participants if at all possible. Your energy gives me energy. So welcome, 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 everybody. My session today is all about analysis and how analysis is the key to great products. Hey, Kim, how are you? Hi, Mula, hello. All right. So I am passionate about analysis and what analysis can do for product teams. And those of you that know me know this very, very well. A quick introduction to me. I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm an IC Agile authorized instructor. So I'm authorized in teaching product ownership through IC Agile, and I do teach those courses, usually private organizations. I don't do many public courses at all. There's a QR code on the left side of the screen. That's to connect with me on LinkedIn. So just use your phone. Let's see everyone, right? Can we just everybody put up their phone and start scanning. You can also just follow me versus connect with me. I have that on as well. So my experience is 25 years plus helping organizations do better analysis. So the roles and titles, of course, have varied throughout the years, but my primary focus is really making sure that we're analyzing what we're building. Are we building the right thing at the right time? It really centers around product ownership, business analysis, prioritization, all that fun stuff that we talk about here. With that, I do coaching of teams and product ownership. I founded a subscription membership site community called BAQ. I've got some of those BAQ members on the call here. So thanks for joining, you guys. And that is just a education and community platform for business analysts and product owners. And then I also do a lot of work with LinkedIn. So I'm a LinkedIn learning instructor teaching Agile product ownership and business analysis with lots and lots and lots of learners. And most recently, just got into the Creator Accelerator program for tech and innovation, which is going on for the next 5 weeks on LinkedIn. So if you follow me on my profile, you'll see some of my posts there. But in that, there's a cohort of 120 people, and we get to collaborate every day on tech and innovation posts and content to bring to the LinkedIn community. So LinkedIn, of course, is evolving from a resume platform to a content and knowledge sharing platform. So if you haven't been out there lately, your feed is full of content, learning, networking type stuff, events, audio events. I have an audio event Thursday morning, for example. So there's just all kinds of just really great content out there. It's not about, oh, I only log into LinkedIn when I'm looking for a job. I really encourage you guys to use the platform and get out there on a regular basis. So, all right. Aaron, I do a lot and I'm very busy. Yeah, no, I do. It's but it's fun. I like the variety of stuff that I do and all of that. So all right. Well, let's dig in. Let's dig in. I'm going to stretch a little more, you guys, because I haven't even had lunch yet. Even most of you are. Wait, you guys are ready for happy hour. Feel free to type in the chat what happy hour means to you. If that's hot tea, sparkling water, a nice cocktail, I want to know. I'll be thinking about it. I still have lunch, work to do, a workout, and then I'll get to happy hour. So let's see here. What are some common myths? Oh, Kim, lemon drops. Kim, did you know that my tennis team is named the Lemon Drops? I did not know that about you. Okay, excellent. We drink them every Sunday after playing tennis. Yes, I know you're so jealous. And my captain makes them homemade from scratch from lemons in her yard. It gets even better. So, Anne, yes, you look familiar from LinkedIn Learning. I bet I do. I know, it's crazy, right? So yeah, so good to see everybody. If you're just joining us, we are putting into the chat just what your happy hour means. If it's the last session and happy hour is next, whether that be a tea, a water, a cocktail, whatever that is. So what are some myths about analysis? Of course, Agile doesn't mean no analysis at all. And the product owner, in my opinion, in combination with a business analyst, is the best recipe for getting great analysis done on Agile projects. But analysis doesn't have to slow us down, because I think that's a myth, right? Analysis is just going to slow us down. Well, that's if you think about analysis in a really old-fashioned kind of way. Old-fashioned meaning spec documents and an analysis phase. I'm not talking about that. To me, that is not analysis. Are you with me? Hoot, hoot, right? We can do analysis just in time. We can do really, really good analysis in a fast way that can speed the team up towards outcomes and results. And I just sat in on the last part of John Miller's presentation, so I'll do some callbacks to that as well, because I'm also very passionate about outcomes as well. And I'm going to talk about how they tie into the things that I'm talking about as well and into analysis. So we don't need an analysis phase, and analysis will not slow us down. It just takes a very, very, very different way of thinking. So in this presentation, we're going to go over 4 techniques that you can use to do better analysis on the products that you're building. And you're saying in the chat, you do budget analysis. Okay, right? Is that budget analysis for the project or product team? Or is this like on a budgeting product itself, or a budgeting process as part of your project? And because when we're talking about analysis here, we are talking about users, data, rules, and how users, systems, data, and rules all connect together to make sure we get the right thing to the user, right? The right thing for the user, right? Have you ever seen someone just wanting to take that device and crack it over their head because they're not getting what they need? Or you know what? I've got a great story. And I'm trying to put this into a really funky, cool LinkedIn post from my content program. But here's a great story of analysis gone wrong. I recently bought a new refrigerator, and my dairy products have been spoiling quite quickly in the fridge. Now, I am so happy to have a new refrigerator because my old one was 70 degrees. Like I went for a week just dying, right? Like not even having any, and boy, you really realize how much you need a product when you go without it, right? And I really miss my water dispenser. And anyway, so I finally get a new fridge. Everything seems to be going great. It seems to be cold, but yet things are spoiling faster than it should. So I went to Amazon into my Prime account and I said, get me a thermometer I can put in my fridge like ASAP, right? So Amazon delivers it the next day. I put this cute little thermometer, but they came in packs of 3. So I actually put 2 of them in my fridge, 1 of them in my freezer, because I want to know what the temperature is. I looked up the instruction manual. The temperature displayed on the outside of the fridge is what the temperature is set to, not the actual temperature. Business analysis fail number 1. Why would a product show only what it's set to, not the actual temperature? I had to go buy a thermometer to put in the fridge. Now, this was a $3,000 fridge, my friends. Okay. Business analysis fail, in my opinion. As a customer, is this not working for me? Right? Does not make sense. Okay. So then the temperature, every time I read it, says 43 degrees. Anybody know the range of a healthy fridge? Right? The range of a healthy fridge is 34 to 41, I believe. And even the thermometer I bought has this like red and green cool visualization. Well, then I'm like, well, maybe this can't be right. So I switch out all the thermometers and yep, they all do the same thing. Well, then I put it in my house to see if it matches my thermostat in my living room. Yeah, something's wrong. But here's really where the business analysis fail happens. Not the refrigerator product, but the actual service for my warranty. I create the warranty call. I go onto a web page, I fill out a form. So maybe you're on product teams, for example, if anyone is on one that does warranty claims. And it asks me to provide an upload of my receipt and the serial number sticker of the fridge, and my name and my address and all that other info. And then it says to me, book it back within 48 hours with an appointment. And I'm thinking it's kind of a long time when your fridge isn't working. Anyone else think so? Fail number 2. Then 48 hours later, I get a text message. Hi, we hear you're having problems. Have you tried all these self-diagnostic things? And I just type back yes. And it says, is your ice maker still not working? Or is it working, 1 or 2? And I'm scratching my head thinking, I didn't report anything about my ice maker. Business analysis fail number 3. So I type back in the text, I didn't report an issue with my ice maker. My refrigerator's not cold enough. My brand new refrigerator is not cold enough. And they said, sorry, I don't understand, in an automated reply in their text. Anybody? Is that number 4? Are we up to number 4? And so I'm thinking, wow, I've done analysis on systems before. I better answer something. So I answer I can't remember if I answered one or two. And it says, okay, thank you very much. Will someone get back to you? A week later, no response. No response a week later. Okay, fail number 5. After no response for a week, I look up the phone number and I decide to dial on the phone because the web page and the text messaging isn't working for me. I don't know if those are two separate products with two separate product owners, but I call in. And I talked to a lovely, lovely gentleman who says, it looks like we're waiting to hear from you. We didn't get a response from our text message, is what my screen says. Ooh, fail number 6. I said, oh no, I could send you proof, I replied. We can go on and on and on, but basically, this was 2 weeks ago, and I still get a text message every 2 days asking if my issue is resolved. And I go through this nonsense every 2 weeks. Nicole, I don't think I should share the brand. Unless someone on the line works for an appliance company and wants to send me a brand new fridge for free. No. So now I'm just a little nervous because I actually don't eat dairy, but my parents are coming to visit me in California in 2 days. So I had to actually buy dairy for them. And so I have dairy in my fridge, and I just hope it's good for them when they get here. I do buy my cheese. But anyway, anyone else a cheese lover? So analysis is such a critical component. Who does all this work, right? Who's analyzing the user experience on the team? Who's analyzing that every interaction that user gets, every interaction actually works, not from a spec perspective, but from a user perspective, right? We're not just throwing crap out there and saying, well, we'll wait on feedback to make it work, right? A team can't do all feedback loops for requirements. But I'm not really a big fan of written requirements either, right? I'm a fan of just-in-time analysis with assets, big visual charts, models, and assets the team uses to collaborate and get the work done. When we're working on a small enough piece at a time in a sprint, what happens here is that we have a small enough chunk, we can remember it. We don't necessarily have to write down spec level information. Of course, we have our user story and our acceptance criteria. Absolutely. But I want to go into 4 techniques today that can truly help teams. And one of them is a product vision. The second thing we're going to talk about is a story map, but we're going to really gloss over that because I know a lot of you know about story maps already. Then we're going to go into a state diagram and impact maps. So if by chance you're on this session right now and you're like, I know everything there is to know about metrics, visions, story maps, impact maps, and state diagrams, go see the other speaker. If you want to learn about these 4 things, hang on the line and let's go. Buckle up. So with that, let's talk about product vision and metrics. Now, John just talked about outcomes. So I agree with much of what John said about outcomes. So try and tie this in. So as product owners, one of our first things we have to do is create a product vision statement. And I'm a big fan of good enough, not perfect. We need a vision statement that's good enough to run by our leaders and stakeholders and team and make sure everyone's got a shared understanding. So I put an example here that's user focused, articulates the value, states the key features, and the change from the current state. FitStore is an online store for fitness enthusiasts who want to save money, time, and share equipment and with others. They can buy, sell, and share tips and routines to use fitness equipment compared to today, where they might be spending more precious time and energy on used or new equipment. Okay, everyone got a clear idea of what this thing is that I just made up in this vision statement? Total fictitious example, by the way, right? So an online kind of thing to help people broker used equipment, and they can even share tips, tricks, and routines. All right, so let's break this down. If we break this down, fitness enthusiasts is our user-focused part. We are saying exactly who uses this product. It's not for users, it's for fitness enthusiasts. And what about these people? The value we're going to give them? We're going to save money, time, and share things with each other. We can buy, we can sell, share tips and routines. That's our feature list compared to today where they don't have this. Does anybody have this type of statement for their product? You've got your users identified. You've got your value identified, which has to tie to your outcomes, your key features, and why it's different than today, which to me is so darn important. Why is it different than today? Because then we can really get at it. So when I work with teams, what we do is we work for about an hour on a product vision. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's the final vision that the team ends up going with, but it's pretty darn good and can get the team started. So my kind of whole mantra is we can get a team kickstarted and sprinting in between a half day and 2 days without a requirements phase and still do really, really good analysis. So for my tried and true dyed in the wool BAs on the line, did I just make you scream and really scared? I mean, back to John's Halloween analogy, right? I don't have a cool soundtrack though. But for those of you dyed in the wool BAs, okay, right? Like, I am not talking about a full-fledged requirements process. I hear so many teams talk about how they have this requirements process and then they do Agile. And it's like, no, it's all part of it, right? So a team can get a product vision whipped up pretty quickly, right? We need our key business stakeholders in the room. We need the team in the room, and we need a really good product owner, analyst, facilitator to facilitate this. And along with this, you're going to want to do the outcome metrics, a lot like John mentioned before. So impromptu quiz, everybody. Is John on the line? Because I can ask people, what would the outcome metrics be for this product vision? I'm scrolling through to see if John's on the line with us. He's not. But call out to John. What would our outcome metrics be? Anyone on that last call? What would we be measuring from a user perspective in order to get the right metrics and outcomes for this?
The value.
Yeah, exactly. So Nicole, what would value mean to you?
I guess what I'm passionate about. So if a product's released, am I going to use that product, and why would I use that product? For a reason.
Yeah. So for the Spit store example, that could be, I saved time. I didn't have to go to 6 used stores.
It could be like with Fit store, users can increase their savings. Or increase their savings by buying the same fitness equipment at a lesser price.
Yep. Yeah, so they can save money, they can save time because they can do it all online versus shopping around at the various stores, new and used stores. And Arles, I don't know if I said your name right, and Sarah, I love what you guys are talking about with their saving time by getting information and knowledge gained from others. Like, I'm going to buy this piece of equipment. How about some tips on how to use it compared to other brands or types of equipment of a same genre, right? So, right, all really key analysis outcomes. So these can all be done with a team in an hour or two of really meaningful dialogue with someone who really knows how to facilitate this. And this can set up the team for so many things. So next, what a team would do is do a user story map. And a user story map, I love to see teams huddle around a story map during their daily stand-up meetings. Any shout outs here for teams that are doing that? Now, there's some really key things about user story maps. I guess I'll start out with some anti-patterns that I see teams doing. Story maps need to be from a user perspective and assume that your user stories are from a user perspective. Whenever I hear teams say, yeah, we tried a story map, but it really didn't work, I will look at it and go, I know why it didn't work, because your user stories aren't from a user point of view. It's not a work breakdown structure like a traditional project management plan, and it's not a feature breakdown. So it's one of the other mistakes I'll see is things on top like notifications, reports. They're more like architectural service-oriented features, and that's not what we want at that top level. I think that's pretty common that teams do that. But we really need to focus those top level epics in story maps on user actions. So you might be scratching your head going, okay, Angela, but then where do I put my reports and my notifications? I want you to put them underneath the user action they support. So for example, if on our story map, we would have something like deliver product. So you buy a used treadmill online, right? And we expect that to be delivered. So underneath deliver product, you might have all kinds of user stories, like user stories about the shipping group or the seller of the product sending it or shipping it, the customer validating address, the customer viewing their status, etc. And maybe we want a user story about the customer receiving a notification that it has arrived on their doorstep. I don't want to build out an entire notifications feature and have that in a whole different column of my story map. I want to have it right in the delivery thing so that I can prioritize it with other like features that support the value the user is getting. Because the value isn't notifications. The value is they got the product delivered. Am I resonating with anybody on this? Because you're going to typically see like your technical architect types, your tech lead types, they're going to want to throw all that under one column and name an epic on a user story, notifications or reports or something like that, right? But I'm saying, no, spread those out so that you only have to develop the one little piece you need in priority order as it comes up. Now, your architects are going to say, but no, I need to see the big picture of all the notifications so that I can build it correctly. I agree. Then build your own ecosystem map to do that. That's not my job to analyze your service-oriented architecture. And we can work as a team, absolutely. But they can have their own visual assets and artifacts to analyze where there's shared services. That's not what a story map is supposed to be about. So, okay. So Shaifali Garg, you're saying, yes, makes sense. Okay.
Angela,
Yeah.
though I have a question on the last thing. When you said that the outcome matrix needs to be discussed with the team, so when you are saying team, do you mean the customers? Because we are working for the customers and we want to like clarify what value most to them. So when you're saying team, so team is customers or the developers or the internal teams you are talking about?
Any and all who are appropriate. So I would say at least your team and your business stakeholders. And the more you can bring in real customers, the better. Because what if your outcomes are not quite right? So, for example, I've been in beta testing groups for products that I use. And when I share my feedback, the product managers and product owners sometimes shake their head and go, I had no idea you would use it for that. Ooh, they didn't have the outcomes correct. So sometimes we can get in our own little silos and holes if we're not talking to our external customers, and we start guessing, right? Hypotheses and assumptions that haven't been validated. We start guessing. So one of the phrases I like to use, especially with an agile group, is that if you are used to the term requirements are simply hypotheses and assumptions that haven't been proven to add value yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my
Thank
gosh. Earth-shattering, right? Requirements are not requirements. And that's why I think in a lot of the agile communities, that term isn't used very much, but yet a lot of us kind of grew up with that term, right? Requirements are hypotheses and assumptions of things that are needed, but we haven't proven that they're actually needed to add value to the outcomes. So call them what you will. I don't want to have a debate about are they required or not. I think it's more like, think about it like, if you're in a place that uses requirements as a term, it's required that we see if this thing adds value. And our job as a product owner or a business analyst is really to say, okay, what's the smallest version of this feature, this requirement that we can build to test our assumptions and validate, and then go from there. So, yeah. Okay. All right. So the user story maps, I know there's so much information on those out there. So I'm going to move on to another technique called a state transition diagram. Now we're going to dig into the example on the board here a little more, but in order to start with the state transition diagram, and what we're talking about here is status or states. So I want you to think about if you have a user story map or a bunch of user stories, what are the objects or nouns in your user stories? So a user story, we're getting some background noise. I'm going to see if I can, the only unmuted mic, I think, there we go. Okay, we're off. Okay. The objects of your user stories. So user stories have a who and an action, a what and a why. The second part of your what is your object. So as a speaker today, I want to share my presentation so that my audience can see visuals as I'm presenting. What's my object in that user story? As a speaker, I want to share my presentation so that my audience can see visuals as I'm speaking. What is the object of the verb of the user? Yes, Nicole, winner, winner, chicken dinner. All right, Nicole, great job. Presentation. As a speaker, I want to share my presentation. right? So speaker is my user role, share is my action, presentation is my object. So if you analyze and look at all your user stories, find the more commonly mentioned objects or nouns. Okay, I put some common ones that a lot of you might be dealing with here, right? So claim, order, dashboard, chart, patient record, appointment, document, route, record, incident. Maybe you can share in the chat message what some of your common objects are. That's the first step. Then, oh, sorry, here we go. We can look at user stories. So here for a Fit Store example, I put some user stories in here, and the common verb I found was cart. Okay, as a shopper, I want to add an item to my cart. I want to remove an item from my cart. I want to change a quantity of an item in my cart. Cart is the object that likely has a status. So here is a state transition diagram where all of the squares, new, pending, canceled, fulfillment, shipping, delivered, returned, is the status of an order. A status or a cart or an order? Ooh, I might have to analyze that one more. So we're looking at the status of an item, an order, or a cart. We could even analyze those words more to say, what is this the status of? So something is new, and we always have the actions are in these phrases between, right? So if you look at cart items placed in cart, customer selects the checkout, customer cancels order, customer confirms order. These are user actions that trigger a status change. Oh, what do those phrases sound like? What do those phrases sound like? Anybody? They sound like user stories, don't they? User actions with objects, right? So, okay, so we've got statuses and we've got user actions. So if we do this, we start to go, wait, do I even have all these user stories? Do all the phrases outside of the boxes have user stories from different perspectives of the different people and users involved? And does my acceptance criteria state the actual action or trigger that has to happen to flip it from one status to the next? I find that when teams do this, they find immense amounts of missed details. And they can do this pretty quickly, add it to their user stories and acceptance criteria, and get a final product out the door faster. Otherwise, it takes quite a bit of feedback and interesting conversations without this visual that take a lot longer to get to, and to get to an acceptable product from your user group or business teams. So the visual actually helps the team neurologically, like neuroscience wise, rally on a shared understanding faster. And even though it seemed like we're unearthing more user stories here, we're actually going to get the work done faster and get it accepted faster, right? So super, super important that we start to use these types of techniques. These have been around for decades and decades in the business analysis phase. It's just not something we have to have a phase to do ahead of time. A BA, a business analyst or product owner, as they're working on user stories, can go, oh my gosh, I bet we have statuses here. We better outline a state transition diagram to figure out what other stories and statuses we're missing. Or another way to think about this as a BA or product owner is, wow, I wish there was a simpler way to do this so that we could get feedback first. Maybe this is an end state idea right now, but what would an MVP version be? Right? Maybe it's just new, pending, and delivered until we build other functionality. And so then can you as a product owner or business analyst start analyzing the flow, the user workflow in phases? Like first, we're going to deliver new, pending, returned with these user stories. Second, we're going to add in the returned process or the canceling process or more details because pending can go into fulfillment and shipping. Like really kind of start analyzing different levels of complexity for your product, as we should be anyway. You can use this to help have those conversations and agreement. Otherwise, it tends to spin, right? Or just not happen at all. And then we never quite go live on time. Anybody relate to that? All right. So with the state diagram, we find that we have missing stories. What did we find? We found that if we had these 3 stories originally in our backlog, We were missing view order status, cancel my order, view estimated arrival date, confirm order, and return order. All those stories were missing once we did this. Then we can decide as a team and product owner, how are we going to prioritize this? And we can say, let's do 3 sprint goals with our sprint goals or outcomes, as Josh would talk about, or John. And then we can say our current focus is on buying equipment, next focus, selling equipment, and in Q3, we're working on sharing tips and routines. So that maps really well to that outcomes discussion that was being had. So is this what your sprint plan and roadmaps look like, where it's outcome driven, where we have focuses on different parts of the outcomes, and you can use these analysis techniques to really draw that out? So, all right, how are we doing with state transition diagrams? Who's familiar with those already, or did we just blow everyone's mind and top off by introducing something completely new? Kim, you've seen them before?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, for me, it's completely new, and I want to understand as well. Like, so you have made the state transition just for the cart. So we should make the state transition for different objects, is it? Like, first identify the objects and then make the different transition for those objects.
Well, it's a little bit of a decision-making exercise. So when you analyze all the different objects in your user stories, you're going to decide which is the most needed to do a state diagram. And I'd recommend, just thinking through it and go, oh yeah, this is the most needed right now. And then you're going to get more buy-in from the team to do it for other objects. So it's not for one card, because as you see, that one state transition diagram brings on 7 or 8 user stories. And then you might split those user stories into smaller stories. So yeah, definitely these visual models become kind of a contextual picture of multiple user stories, which helps us connect the dots more and helps with testing and all that. Aaron, no surprise you've used them before, right? So, yeah. All right, so I've got another big hitter technique for you next. It is called impact mapping. And Robin, good shout out to that. You love state diagrams as well. So we've got Kim, Aaron, Robin, all using state diagrams. So shout out to you guys. Awesome. And I know there will be some folks trying them out next. So next is impact mapping. And impact mapping is made up of goals, actors, impacts, and deliverables. And let's look at an example. So with impact mapping, we start with our goal. Now, these are the things that your executives say they want, right? They want increased sales, they want decreased costs, reduce risk. You always hear about that. And then we have our actors. So the actors are going to be your main users, right? So here we have buyers and sellers as our main users. Then impact. These are going to be synonymous to the outcomes that John talked about in the last session. So the outcomes, for example, right, are going to be things like browse products, purchase products, and that sellers want to list items for sale and share their tips and routines. From there, we can then say, here are the user stories or epics that we want to deliver. And again, we have that verb, noun, user action focus. This only, again, works when your user stories are about the users. And that's what all of this has in common, right? Story maps, state diagrams, impact mapping, they're about users, and they help us see the user flow better and help us understand the user experience better. So now imagine you could put your deliverable column here into your sprint plans and go back and show how your sprint plans align to your impact map. So now you've taken this executive mandate for the project, which is always super vague, and we've connected the dots completely instead of made a big black hole in the middle. Are you with me? Because isn't that one of our biggest challenges, right? Is we think our executives are kind of speaking one language and the team is speaking another, and we are the role that needs to bridge this together, right? So super, super important on impact maps. And I've seen a lot of them that, again, people do them and spend a bunch of time on them, but then they don't really serve their purpose because they're not done that well. You must have human actors. Do not put systems or team member roles under the actors. And some of you might be thinking, but what if I'm on like a technical team project like feeds or APIs or something like that? Well, those are part of a value stream used by users. So still, who is using that? Now, your user might not be touching it and using it, but there's a process that API or feed supports that impacts a user action. And that's what you have to think of here is, I have a little bit of a problem with project teams being set up to only deliver one slice of the cake, so to speak, right? If it's an API or a feed that doesn't have a user, my response to that is, so if we just remove this piece from our ecosystem that doesn't impact anybody, oh no, you can't do that. Well, what would happen if we do? Well, then our payments won't go through because that's the API between us and the bank to validate credit cards. Oh, so the user action is about checking out and making payments? Then your actor would be the customer, right? And your impact would be them making a payment. And your deliverable might be then a user story about making the payment with an American Express card or a Visa card or a MasterCard, for example. So it doesn't matter how deep into the technology your project is, you have to be able to see where that piece connects to a user, an impact, and a deliverable that produces something for the user, right? Not all teams are set up in a great way, honestly, right? In fact, it's a huge barrier for a lot of organizations switching to Agile is the teams aren't set up in a fully cross-functional team to do a full value stream of work. And so with that in mind, it becomes even more important for product owners and business analysts to show that big picture, to show the big picture of how our work connects. So with impact mapping, your goal are the things that business leaders typically say they want. It's usually increase revenue, decrease cost, decrease risk type things. Your actors are the actual end users of the product. So you might say, I don't have end users, and I'm going to say, baloney. Figure out the value stream your technology is a part of. There are end users there, I guarantee it. The impacts are the behaviors that your end users do to meet their goal. This isn't about your goal. It's about the end user's goal. I'm trying to make a payment, no matter you're working on the API, the feed, the database, the UI, whatever layer of the tech stack, right? And your deliverables, the user actions or your user stories and epics. Again, user stories are about users. All this starts to fall apart if your user stories are not about users. So super, super important. There is a reason it's called a user story. There's a reason all of these are user focused, because we won't have the right conversations, the right analysis, the right opportunities, the right flexibility, the right designs, and the right mindset to deliver great products if we're not looking at it from a user perspective. So make sure that on your impact map, you're not looking at team tasks, you're not looking at outputs, but you are looking at outcomes. Again, shout out to John from the last session and teeing up this whole outcomes piece. So a summary for you before we can get into some questions and stuff, because I can't believe how fast time flies, you guys. Analysis can speed up the team to better outcomes. It takes a product vision that's outcome and user focused. It takes analysis models that are used as conversational assets for the team, like user story mapping, state diagrams, and impact mapping. So let analysis guide your team to success. And I know there's been some good discussion in the chat, but what other questions do you have? I believe I have about 6 minutes left for questions. So I know there's folks on here where all of this is brand new, and there's folks on here that have seen a lot of it before. Let's get some sharing going. Where can we go to learn about these tools, says Nicole. Well, a few interesting answers for you. I could say Google it and you'll find all kinds of stuff, which could be true as well. But I also teach this stuff on my bacube.com learning platform. So I think there's lots of resources for these tools. So I think impact mapping might have a .org as well to show some of it. User story mapping, I know Jeff Patton's got a book on that. Like, I mean, there's a lot of these are pretty, none of this is like brand new, unknown, undiscoverable, right? Lots of all this stuff, there's lots of info out there. So yeah. Let's see, Mutia asking, as an aspiring Scrum Master, should these analysis techniques be something we should coach our product owner? Ooh, wow, loaded question. Part of me says your product owner should know this, or your business analyst should, but I'm going to be honest, most don't, because product owners and business analysts are rarely trained, right? Very few go through formal training to learn these things. So the trick is, as a Scrum Master, it's going to be very hard to coach them on it if you haven't done it quite a bit yourself. So I would encourage you to try this out and play around with it with you and the team. I've seen Scrum Masters, what I don't want you to get into is trying to like recommend a product owner who isn't trained in this stuff. Oh, you should do this. And they're just not going to see you as credible. Perhaps you could run into some issues with that. So make sure that you're trying and applying before trying to coach someone on it. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Shaifal, let's see. Impact analysis should be done before requirement sign off. Well, that depends what you mean by a requirement sign off or finalizing a backlog, because to me, all those things iterate through and there's never really a final sign off on a backlog or requirements if you're working in an agile environment, right? It's an ever evolving backlog and an ever evolving requirements landscape when you're working in agile. So I would say all of these are ever evolving techniques that iterate and have a life that evolves and gets updated as the team works. So yeah. Marco, speaking as a PO, this knowledge is a must. Marco, do you want to share more out loud about that? That's pretty strong comment. You're on mute if you're talking. But rather not, but okay. Oh, baby is asleep. Gotcha. No problem. No problem. So Shaifali, yes, it's an ongoing iterative process. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Great. Excellent. Is there someone from the conference? No, are we going back to the main room for some final wrap up? Is that what's next? A couple more questions in here. How to better prioritize defect stories and technical stories. So Imain or Amani, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I'm going to throw something out there. It might be a little up for debate, but I'm going to say most of the time your defect stories and technical stories are just poorly written user stories. So try to rewrite those from a user value perspective. I actually find there's very few teams that are very successful with defect and technical stories. You've got to be able to like analyze the defects. So if you've got 100 defects reported, you probably have 10 user stories. A lot of the defects look different, but they're actually for the same thing. So we have to be analyzing those things. And for technical stories, we have to be really looking at, is there user value changing in that, or is it technical debt? So I'm not a huge fan of a concept of defect stories or technical stories. I think it can sometimes be a little bit of an excuse to not write a good user story, or for teams that don't know how to write a good user story or don't know the user impact of those technical or defects. So I'm gonna dodge that bullet for you and challenge you guys to write real user stories for those items. So a defect comes in, the defect needs to be analyzed for the real user story that's underlying there, versus just every defect getting a story or every technical task getting a story. So just gonna throw that back at you. So some free resources. If you go to bacube.com, it's ba-cube.com. I'll put that in the chat. I do have a couple of free lessons out there. Oops, that went to the wrong person. There's a couple of free lessons out there. And
I went there, Angela, today in today morning, like whole time I was browsing that itself. But its membership is paid only. Like I didn't find anything to have. That's why. Like, is there any LinkedIn course specifically where you taught about these tools?
Good question. There's 18,000 courses on LinkedIn, so I haven't searched on these
No,
terms.
for you taught it because I have done your requirement elicitation course.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I've got 10 courses on LinkedIn. There's an Agile requirements course. I don't love the name. I think that's funny, but LinkedIn names the courses. Um, and then there's an Agile product owner and an Agile product owner techniques course. So there's 3 Agile analysis courses out on LinkedIn, also an Agile analysis weekly tips course on LinkedIn Learning as well. So yeah. All right. Excellent. Thank you guys very much. Connect on LinkedIn and go back to the main room for our wrap up today. Have an awesome rest of your day, everybody.